Imagine a morning, centuries ago. A thick, pearly mist rolls off the wide, brown expanse of the Mississippi River, blanketing the floodplains in a quiet hush. As the sun begins its slow climb, its first golden rays pierce the fog, and one by one, they reveal something extraordinary. Not mountains, not natural hills, but colossal shapes rising from the earth like sleeping giants. These are the Great Mounds, silent sentinels that have watched the river flow for 1,000 years. Today, they stand as quiet monuments, grass-covered and serene, but they hold the secret, a story of a world lost to time. Beneath these very mounds, beneath the layers of soil and the roots of ancient trees, lies the ghost of a city. Long before Columbus sailed, long before the first European explorers charted these waters, a sprawling, sophisticated metropolis thrived right here, near what we now call St. Louis. This wasn't a simple village. It was a bustling center of life, culture, and power. The largest city of its time north of Mexico. Its people built these incredible structures with their bare hands, aligning them with the sun and stars, creating a sacred landscape that mirrored their cosmos. Who were these people? What was their city called? We know them today as the Mississippians, and their capital, now Los Tuwasa. It's called Cahokia. For centuries, it was the heart of a civilization, a place of grand plazas, bustling markets, and ceremonies that reached for the heavens from atop these very mounds. This is not a tale of ruins and dust, but a story of a vibrant society, of astronomers, artists, and leaders who built a world that, for a time, was the center of their universe. They crafted intricate pottery, traded goods across the continent, and developed a complex social structure that allowed them to build on a scale that baffles us even today. Take Monks Mound, the largest of them all, standing over 100 feet tall, with a base larger than the Great Pyramid of Giza. It was the heart of the city. Imagine standing at its peak, looking out over a city of thousands, with smoke curling from countless homes and the great plaza below teeming with people. From that vantage point, a leader could see the entire world they had built. But just as quickly as it rose, Cahokia faded. By the time the first French explorers arrived in this valley, the city was empty. The great plazas were overgrown, the houses had returned to the earth, and only these silent mounds remained, guarding the memory of what had been. What? Upended, why did they leave? Was it war, climate change, disease, or something else entirely? The mystery of Cahokia's decline is as compelling as its rise. The story of this lost city is a powerful reminder that history is not always written in books. Sometimes, it's written on the land itself. These mounds are more than just hills. They are pages of a history book waiting to be read. They are a connection to a forgotten American past, a testament to the ingenuity and spirit of a people who shaped this continent long before our modern world was even a dream. In this series, we will journey back in time. We will peel back the layers of earth and legend to uncover the secrets of Cahokia. We'll walk the paths of its ancient inhabitants, explore the meaning behind their monumental works, and try to understand the forces that led to the birth and eventual abandonment of America's first great city. Join us as we dig into the past, guided by the archaeologists and historians who have dedicated their lives to solving this puzzle. We will explore the latest discoveries and theories, bringing this forgotten world back to life. The story is etched into the landscape, waiting beneath the mounds of time. Let's begin the journey to uncover it. Thank you for watching, and if you're as fascinated by this lost world as we are, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter. Welcome back to our journey through time. In this chapter, we're diving deep into the heart of an ancient continent. Forget what you think you know about North America before Columbus. Let's rewind the clock to the year 1000 CE and discover a world teeming with life, complex societies, and sprawling networks. This isn't an empty wilderness. It's a vibrant landscape of diverse cultures, each with its own story. Imagine a continent not defined by modern borders, but by natural highways, and at the very center of it all flows a mighty river, the Mississippi. This wasn't just a body of water. It was the lifeblood of the continent. For thousands of years, this river and its countless tributaries served as the main street of ancient America. It was a superhighway for trade, a pathway for travelers, and a conduit for the flow of ideas, traditions, and cultural innovations. Goods from the Gulf of Mexico, like prized seashells, could find their way to the Great Lakes. Obsidian from the Rocky Mountains could be traded for copper from the east. The river connected people, creating a vast, interconnected world that stretched for thousands of miles. It was a place of constant movement, exchange, and shared experiences. Now, who were the people at the heart of this bustling world? Along the fertile banks of the Mississippi and its major tributaries, a remarkable culture was flourishing. We call them the Mississippians, but a more fitting name might be the Center Builders. These were not nomadic tribes wandering the plains. They were master architects, brilliant engineers, and sophisticated farmers who constructed some of the largest and most complex settlements on the continent. They were the beating heart of this ancient North American network, creating centers of power, religion, and trade that drew people in from all directions. The hallmark of the Mississippian culture was the mound. But these weren't just simple hills of earth. They were massive, handcrafted earthen pyramids, meticulously planned and built over generations. Some were flat-topped platforms for the homes of chiefs and priests or for sacred temples that reached toward the sky. Others were conical or ridge-topped, likely used for sacred burial rituals, honoring their most revered ancestors. Building these mounds required immense social organization, a deep understanding of engineering, and a shared vision that united thousands of people in a common purpose. Each layer of earth was a testament to their dedication, their faith, and their power. At the center of the Mississippian universe was a revolutionary innovation, a new variety of corn. This wasn't the small, wild teosinte of their ancestors. Through careful cultivation, they developed a highly productive strain of maize that could feed vast populations. This agricultural surplus was the engine that powered their society. It allowed for specialization. Not everyone had to be a farmer. You could have artisans, priests, warriors, and leaders. It enabled the growth of large, permanent towns and, eventually, cities. Corn was more than just food. It was the foundation of their entire civilization, fueling their expansion and their incredible building projects. So, where were these great centers? They dotted the landscape from the swamps of Florida to the plains of Wisconsin, and from the valleys of Oklahoma to the hills of Georgia. But the absolute epicenter, the New York City of its day, was a place we now call Cahokia. Located in modern-day Illinois, just across the river from St. Louis, Cahokia was a sprawling metropolis. At its peak around 1100 CE, it was larger than London was at the time. Tens of thousands of people lived in the city itself, with thousands more in surrounding farming villages. It was a true urban center, with a complex social hierarchy, bustling markets, and a level of planning that is simply breathtaking. The heart of Cahokia was its grand plaza, a massive open space larger than 35 football fields, used for public ceremonies, games, and markets. Surrounding this plaza were more than 120 mounds of various sizes and functions. Dominating the entire city was the colossal Monks Mound, standing 100 feet tall. With a base larger than the Great Pyramid of Giza, it remains the largest prehistoric earthwork in the Americas. Imagine standing atop this massive structure, looking out over a city of thatched roof houses, smoking fires, and the glistening river in the distance. This was the view of the city's paramount chief, a leader who held both political and spiritual authority over this vast and complex society. Life in Cahokia and other Mississippian centers was rich and multifaceted. Artisans crafted exquisite pottery, intricate jewelry from shell and copper, and finely chipped stone tools. Priests conducted complex rituals aligned with the movements of the sun and stars. Evidence from structures like Woodhenge, a circle of large wooden posts at Cahokia, suggests they had a sophisticated understanding of astronomy, using it to mark solstices and equinoxes, crucial for their agricultural calendar and religious ceremonies. This was a society deeply connected to the cosmos and the cycles of the natural world. The influence of the Mississippian culture spread far and wide, carried along the riverine highways. Their distinct style of pottery, their religious symbols like the weeping eye motif, and their model of a chief-led society with ceremonial mound centers were adopted and adapted by peoples across the American Southeast and Midwest. This interconnected network of trade and cultural exchange is often called the Mississippian ideological interaction sphere. It shows that Cahokia wasn't just a big town. It was a cultural capital, setting trends and influencing the lives of people hundreds of miles away. But like all great civilizations, the era of the Mississippian centers eventually came to an end. By around 1350 CE, the great city of Cahokia was largely abandoned. The reasons are still debated by archaeologists. Was it environmental change? Perhaps deforestation and overuse of resources led to flooding and crop failures. Was it disease? The dense population would have been vulnerable to epidemics. Or was it social and political upheaval? Perhaps the rigid social structure could no longer be sustained, leading to conflict and collapse. The truth is likely a combination of these factors. Though the great cities emptied, the people didn't just disappear. They dispersed. Their societies transformed, and their descendants became the diverse Native American groups that European explorers would later encounter, such as the Creek, the Choctaw, and the Cherokee. The stories, traditions, and legacy of the great mound builders lived on, woven into the fabric of these new cultures. The heart of the continent kept beating, just to a different rhythm. So when you think of ancient America, remember the Mississippians. Remember the bustling city of Cahokia, the grand earthen pyramids reaching for the heavens, and the mighty river that connected them all. This was a world built not of stone, but of earth, wood, and a powerful shared vision. Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration into the heart of an ancient continent. If you found this journey as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss our next chapter. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep exploring. Have you ever wondered what North America was like before Columbus? Forget the dusty, oversimplified stories you heard in school. We're about to journey back in time, 1,000 years ago, to a world brimming with innovation, ambition, and monumental construction. This is the story of America's first cities, the rise of powerful chiefs, and a revolution that changed the continent forever. Welcome to the world of the Mississippians. Before the great mound cities dominated the landscape, the story begins much more humbly with the people of the woodland period. For thousands of years, communities thrived across the eastern half of North America. They were brilliant hunters and foragers, deeply connected to the rhythm of the forests and rivers. They created beautiful pottery, established far-reaching trade networks, and were the first to build earthen mounds, often as sacred burial places for their honored dead. They lived in small, scattered villages, their lives dictated by the seasons and the natural abundance of the land. But something was quietly taking root that would change everything. It wasn't a sudden invasion or a dramatic discovery, but the slow, patient cultivation of a crop that would become a cornerstone of civilization. Maize, or what we call corn. Initially, maize wasn't a staple. It was just one of many plants people tended in their gardens, alongside squash and beans. These early varieties were small, not the big, sweet cobs we know today. For centuries, woodland people saw it as a supplement, not a replacement for hunting and gathering. Growing, it was a gamble. It required cleared land, constant attention, and the right weather. It was a slow burn, a gradual experiment unfolding over generations. But as knowledge grew and the corn itself was selectively bred to be more productive, a tipping point was reached, around 800 to 900 AD, particularly in the fertile river valleys of the Midwest and Southeast. What archaeologists call the American Bottom near St. Louis's agricultural experiment began to pay off spectacularly. Suddenly, communities could produce a reliable surplus of food. This surplus was more than just extra calories. It was power. It was security. It meant not everyone had to spend their days hunting or foraging. It was the seed from which a new society would sprout. With a dependable food source, populations began to boom. Small, dispersed hamlets started to coalesce into larger, more permanent villages. Why? Because farming, especially corn farming, ties you to the land. You have to stay to plant, to weed, to protect your crops from pests, and to harvest. These larger villages weren't just bigger. They were different. They were organized. You start to see planned layouts, with houses arranged around a central open plaza. This plaza wasn't just empty space. It was the heart of the community, a place for ceremonies, for games, for politics, for life. To unfold, this shift created a whole new set of social dynamics. When you have more people living together, you need new ways to organize society. You need leaders to manage the food surplus, to mediate disputes, and to organize communal projects like building defensive walls or, more importantly, mounds. This is where we see the emergence of chief. Unlike the more egalitarian woodland societies, chiefdoms were hierarchical. A chief, believed to have a special connection to the spiritual world, held authority. This power wasn't just political, it was sacred. And how did these new chiefs display their power and organize their people? They built mounds. But these weren't just the burial mounds of their ancestors. The Mississippians began constructing massive, flat-topped platform mounds. Imagine huge, earthen pyramids with flat tops. The chief's residence would be built on the summit of the tallest mound, physically elevating him above everyone else, closer to the sun and the gods. Other mounds might support temples, council houses, or the homes of other elite families. The central plaza, once just an open space, was now framed by these monumental structures, a grand stage for public life. This transformation was profound. Life was no longer just about survival. It was about community, status, and shared belief. The agricultural surplus freed up hands and minds. Artisans could now specialize, creating breathtaking works of art from shell, copper, and stone objects that carried deep symbolic meaning and were traded across hundreds of miles. Priests organized complex religious ceremonies tied to the agricultural calendar, celebrating the planting and the harvest. Engineers and laborers were mobilized to move millions of basketfuls of earth to construct the mounds. A testament to the chief's power to command his people, from small, scattered bands of hunter-gatherers to thriving agricultural villages, and finally, two complex, bustling towns centered around monumental mounds. This wasn't a quick or easy process. It was a slow, centuries-long evolution driven by the humble corn plant. It laid the foundation for the sprawling city-states that would soon dominate the continent. The era of the mound cities had begun, and at its heart was the greatest of them all, a metropolis that rivaled London in its day. Cahokia. And that's exactly where we're headed next. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey back in time. If you found this fascinating, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter, where we will walk the streets of the incredible city of Cahokia. We'll see you then. Welcome back to our journey through the pre-Columbian America. Last time, we explored the rich tapestry of Mississippian cultures that set the stage for something truly extraordinary. Today, we're diving headfirst into the story of America's first city. We're pinpointing a specific moment in time, a revolutionary period around the year 1050 CE, when a quiet corner of the Mississippi River Valley would be forever changed. Imagine, if you will, the American Bottom, a wide, fertile floodplain just east of modern-day St. Louis. For centuries, it was home to scattered villages, small communities of farmers living in harmony with the land. They grew maize, squash, and other crops, their lives governed by the seasons and the rhythm of the river. It was a stable, predictable existence. But then, something happened. Something big. Around 1050 CE, this tranquil landscape began to pulse with a new energy. Archaeologists call this moment the Big Bang. It wasn't a gradual evolution. It was a sudden, explosive transformation. The small, unassuming village that would become Cahokia began to swell, seemingly overnight. People started pouring in from the surrounding countryside, from dozens, perhaps even hundreds of miles away. What was once a modest settlement was on its way to becoming a metropolis, a bustling urban center that would rival the great cities of Europe at the time. So, what drew them in? What magnetic force pulled thousands of people to this one specific spot? The evidence suggests it was a combination of a powerful new idea and charismatic leadership. A new social and religious vision seems to have taken hold. one that promised a more complex, organized, and perhaps more meaningful way of life. This wasn't just a migration, it was a movement, a convergence of people united by a shared purpose. The archaeological record tells a fascinating story of this rapid urbanization. We see a sudden shift in pottery styles, with new designs and techniques appearing abruptly, indicating the arrival of diverse groups of people bringing their own traditions. Analysis of human remains from this period shows that a significant portion of the population was not local. They were immigrants, first-generation residents who had traveled to be part of this new experiment in living. But perhaps the most compelling evidence of this Big Bang is the construction itself. This wasn't the haphazard growth of a typical village. This was planned. It was organized. It was visionary. Almost immediately, a grand urban plan was laid out. A central, open plaza larger than 35 football fields was cleared and leveled. This great plaza would become the heart of the city, a place for markets, ceremonies, and public gatherings. And then came the mounds. While earlier cultures had built mounds, what happened at Cahokia was on an entirely different scale. Dozens of earthen pyramids began to rise from the floodplain, seemingly all at once. The most colossal of these, which we now call Monks Mound, was started during this initial phase. Imagine the sheer manpower required. Tens of thousands of people, using woven baskets, moved millions of cubic feet of earth. Each basket held about 50 to 60 pounds of soil, and it would have taken an estimated 15 million trips to build Monks Mound alone. This was a monumental undertaking, a testament to the power of a unified community and the authority of its leaders. This initial burst of construction wasn't just about building big things. It was about creating a sacred and symbolic landscape. The city was aligned to astronomical events. Key mounds and posts were positioned to mark the solstices and equinoxes, creating a massive celestial calendar. The most famous example is the series of large wooden posts, known as Woodhenge, which served as a solar observatory, tracking the sun's journey across the sky. This tells us that the leaders of Cahokia weren't just political figures. They were also spiritual guides, astronomers who understood the cosmos and their people's place within it. Think about what this meant for the individual. A farmer living in a small, isolated village might suddenly find themselves part of a massive, coordinated workforce, building a city for the gods. Their world would have expanded dramatically. They were no longer just a member of a small kin group. They were a citizen of Cahokia, a participant in one of the most ambitious construction projects in North American history. The layout of the city reflects a new social order. The grandest mounds, topped with the homes of the elite and important civic buildings, were arranged around the central plaza. Further out, residential neighborhoods sprang up, each with its own smaller plaza and mounds. It suggests a hierarchical society, with powerful leaders at the center who could command immense labor and resources. This social structure, this ability to organize and direct thousands of people, was the engine that powered Cahokia's birth. What's so striking is the speed. The core of this massive city seems to have been laid out and largely built within a single generation. It's a story of radical, intentional change. These were not people who were simply content with the old ways. They were innovators, architects, and social engineers who had a blueprint for a new world and the will to build it. They transformed a collection of hamlets into a city with a peak population estimated to be between 10,000 and 20,000 people, a population larger than London's. At the time, this rapid influx of people from different backgrounds would have created a vibrant, cosmopolitan atmosphere. Imagine the mix of languages, customs, and ideas converging in the Great Plaza. It would have been a melting pot of the Mississippian world, a center for trade, culture, and innovation. The raw materials found at the site: copper from the Great Lakes, seashells from the Gulf of Mexico, mica from the Carolinas, paint, a picture of a city connected to a vast network, a hub drawing in the wealth and resources of a continent. So, the birth of Cahokia around 1050 CE was not a gentle awakening, but a thunderous arrival. It was a social, religious, and political revolution that gave rise to a city unlike any seen before in North America. Fueled by a powerful new ideology and built by the hands of thousands of devoted followers, Cahokia emerged from the Mississippi floodplain, a planned metropolis with a sacred mission. It stands as a powerful reminder of the incredible capacity for change and creation that exists within human societies. In our next chapter, we will explore what life was actually like for the people who called this great city home. We'll walk the streets, visit the markets, and climb the mounds to understand the daily rhythms of Cahokia at its peak. What did they eat? How did they work? What did they believe? The story of this incredible city is far from over. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the past. If you're finding this journey as fascinating as I am, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more. Your support makes all of this possible. We'll see you next time as we continue to uncover the secrets of Cahokia. Welcome back to our journey through the magnificent city of Cahokia. Last time, we explored the daily life of its people. Today, we're zooming out to look at the bigger picture. The city's incredible layout. This wasn't just a random collection of mounds and houses. Cahokia was a masterpiece of urban planning. A city built with intention, precision, and a deep connection to the cosmos. Imagine standing in the heart of Cahokia 1,000 years ago. You'd be surrounded by a landscape that was intentionally shaped. Vast, flat plazas stretched out before you, meticulously leveled and maintained. These weren't just open spaces. They were the stages for community life, for ceremonies, for markets, and for games. The largest of these, the Grand Plaza, covered nearly 50 acres. Think about that. That's the size of 35 football fields. And it was all flattened and engineered by hand, using baskets of soil. This was a monumental effort, creating a perfectly level surface that connected the city's most important mounds. Towering above these plazas were the mounds themselves, arranged in a deliberate, meaningful pattern. Monks Mound, the colossal heart of the city, dominated the northern end of the Grand Plaza. From its summit, the rulers of Cahokia could look out over their domain. A city laid out in a grid-like fashion, aligned with the cardinal directions north, south, east, and west. This wasn't a coincidence. This was sacred geometry in action. The city was a mirror of their worldview, a physical representation of order and balance in a universe they sought to understand. The placement of each mound, each plaza, and each neighborhood was part of a grand cosmic map built on Earth. But the genius of Cahokia's planners went beyond simple north-south alignment. They were also keen observers of the sky. Archaeologists have discovered evidence of large, circular arrangements of massive wooden posts, which they've nicknamed wood henges. Think of them as America's Stonehenge. These aren't just random fences. They are sophisticated astronomical observatories. From a central observation post within the circle, a priest or leader could watch the sunrise throughout the year. On the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, the sun would rise directly behind one specific post. On the summer solstice, the longest day, it would align with another. And during the equinoxes, when day and night are of equal length, the sun would rise behind yet another post, one that happened to be positioned directly in front of Monks Mound from the observer's viewpoint. This is precision on a breathtaking scale. Why go to all this trouble? Because for the people of Cahokia, tracking the sun was essential. It wasn't just about knowing when to plant and when to harvest, although that was certainly vital. It was about marking the most important moments in their ceremonial calendar. The solstices and equinoxes were powerful. Sacred times, signifying the turning of the seasons and the cyclical nature of life, death, and rebirth. Aligning their city with these celestial events infused their world with divine meaning. The leaders who could predict and preside over these moments held immense power, demonstrating their special connection to the gods and the cosmos. This intricate design tells us that the Cahokians saw their city as a link between the earthly realm and the spiritual world above. The layout was a prayer written on the landscape, a way of creating harmony between their society and the heavens. The vertical axis of the mounds reached towards the sky, connecting them to the upper world. The flat, expansive plazas represented the middle world, the plane of human existence, and the cardinal directions, aligned with the sun's journey, created a sense of stability and order, anchoring them in the cosmos. Every aspect of the city's design was imbued with symbolic meaning. The grid wasn't just for efficiency. It was a representation of the four cardinal directions, a fundamental concept in many Native American belief systems. The alignment with the sun wasn't just a calendar. It was a way of synchronizing human life with the rhythms of the universe. Living in Cahokia meant living within a sacred landscape, where every street you walked and every plaza you crossed was part of a grand, cosmic design. It was a constant reminder that their world was ordered, meaningful, and divinely sanctioned. The sheer scale of this planning is hard to comprehend. It required advanced knowledge of geometry, astronomy, and engineering. It required a unified vision, a powerful leadership that could mobilize thousands of workers, and a shared belief system that gave purpose to this incredible undertaking. The city of Cahokia was more than just a place to live. It was a physical manifestation of a complex and sophisticated understanding of the universe. It was an attempt to build heaven on earth, to create a space of perfect harmony between humanity, the land, and the sky. This incredible legacy of order and sacred geometry is one of the most fascinating aspects of Cahokia. It challenges our perceptions of what ancient societies in North America were capable of. Join us next time as we climb the greatest mound of all, Monks Mound, to understand the power and prestige at the very heart of this ancient metropolis. Thanks for watching. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the lost city of Cahokia, please hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. See you then. Welcome, Bike History Explorers. Today, we're venturing into the heart of ancient North America to uncover the secrets of a truly colossal structure, a man-made mountain that has stood for 1,000 years. This is Monks Mound, the Earth's pyramid. Picture this. Towering over the flat Mississippi River floodplain, a structure so immense that its base is larger than the Great Pyramid of Giza. At its peak, it stood 100 feet tall, a four-tiered behemoth that dominated the skyline of the largest city north of Mexico, the ancient metropolis of Cahokia. This wasn't built by aliens or a lost civilization. It was the incredible achievement of the Mississippian people, a testament to their organization, their power, and their faith. So, how did they do it? Forget modern machinery. This entire mound was built by hand, one basket at a time. Imagine thousands of people, for over 2 centuries, digging soil from nearby pits, loading it into woven baskets, and carrying it on their backs. Each basket held about 55 pounds of earth. They would ascend the growing mound, deposit their load, and return for another. It's estimated that it took over 15 million of these journeys to construct this single monument. That's a staggering amount of coordinated labor, a communal effort on a scale that's hard to wrap our minds around. But they weren't just piling dirt. Archaeologists have discovered that Monks Mound is a highly engineered structure. It was built in at least 14 distinct stages, with different types of soil carefully selected and layered to ensure stability and drainage. They used a mix of clay, silt, and sand, compacting each layer to create a solid, enduring core. They even incorporated features like clay caps to prevent erosion. This wasn't just brute force. It was sophisticated, ancient engineering that has allowed the mound to survive for a millennium. Think of it like a giant layer cake of earth. Each layer a deliberate step in a grand construction plan that spanned generations. Why go to all this trouble? Monks Mound wasn't just a big pile of dirt. It was the absolute center of the Cahokian world. This was the political, ceremonial, and social heart of the city. Atop its highest terrace stood a massive wooden building, perhaps 50 feet high itself, which would have been visible for miles. This was likely the residence of the paramount chief, a ruler who was both a political leader and a high priest. From this elevated position, he would have presided over religious ceremonies, addressed his people, and observed the cosmos. Imagine standing on that summit 1,000 years ago. Below you, the Grand Plaza stretches out, teeming with thousands of people. Surrounding the plaza are other, smaller mounds and the bustling city with its thatched roof houses. From this vantage point, the chief was physically and symbolically closer to the heavens, a powerful intermediary between the earthly realm and the spirit world. The mound elevated him above everyone else, reinforcing his sacred authority. Important rituals, political announcements, and astronomical observations all happened here. It was the stage upon which the drama of Cahokian society played out. What kinds of ceremonies took place here? While we don't have written records, archaeological evidence, and the beliefs of descendant communities give us some clues. We can imagine large-scale public gatherings in the plaza below, with the chief and other elites appearing on the mound's terraces. Seasonal festivals, perhaps tied to the agricultural cycle of planting and harvesting corn, would have been crucial. Processions may have wound their way up the great staircase that once ascended the mound's face. The mound was a sacred space, a place where the community came together to reaffirm their connection to their leaders, their gods, and each other. Sadly, by around 1350 AD, Cahokia was largely abandoned. The reasons are still debated by scholars, perhaps environmental changes, resource depletion, political instability, or a combination of factors. The great city emptied, and the mounds slowly began to be reclaimed by nature. When French trappers arrived in the area centuries later, they found a community of Trappist monks living near the giant mound, farming on its lower terraces. That's how it got its modern name, Monks Mound. The monks, of course, had no idea they were living on the ruins of a once mighty civilization. Today, Monks Mound is the centerpiece of the Cahokia Mounds State Historic Site, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. You can still climb the modern staircase to the top. When you stand there, looking out over the American bottom floodplain, you can feel the sheer scale of what was accomplished here. It is a powerful reminder of the complex societies that thrived in North America long before European contact. You're not just standing on a hill. You're standing on a monument built by millions of basket loads of earth, faith, and human determination. You are standing at the heart of an ancient American empire. Monks Mound challenges us to rethink our understanding of the past. It proves that monumental architecture and complex urban centers were not limited to the Old World or right here in the heartland of North America. An indigenous culture organized itself to build a city and monuments that rivaled any in the world at the time. It is a pyramid made not of stone, but of the very earth itself, a truly American wonder that continues to inspire awe and curiosity. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey to the top of Monks Mound. The story of Cahokia is a profound chapter in human history, and there's always more to discover. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more explorations into the ancient world. Let me know in the comments what you find most fascinating about Monks Mound. Until next time, keep exploring. Step back in time with me to the year 1100 AD. We're not in a deserted field in modern-day Illinois. We're standing in the heart of a bustling metropolis, the largest pre-Columbian city north of Mexico. Forget what you think you know about ancient North America. This was a city of pyramids, a city of ceremony, a city of thousands, and right now, we are at its very epicenter. The Grand Plaza. The sun is just beginning to climb over the massive earthen structure to the east, Monks Mound. Its first rays catch the morning mist rising from the Mississippi floodplains, casting a golden, almost divine light across the sprawling plaza. The air isn't silent. It hums with the gentle, rhythmic sounds of a city waking up. This isn't the chaotic noise of a modern city, but the layered, organic symphony of a community in motion. Listen closely. Can you hear it? That steady, rhythmic asterisk. Thump, thump, thump asterisk. That's the sound of women pounding corn into meal. The day for most Cahokians begins with the preparation of food. The fields that surround the city are a patchwork of green, rich with corn, squash, and beans. The three sisters, farmers, are already heading out, their deerskin moccasins sinking slightly into the damp earth, carrying digging sticks made of hickory and baskets woven from river cane. Their work is tied to the seasons, to the sun, and to the rituals that ensure a good harvest. Rituals that often take place right here, in T's Plaza. Look over there, near the smaller mounds that flank the plaza. Smoke curls lazily from the tops of thatched roof houses. This is where the artisans live and work. A potter, her hands coated in the reddish-brown clay, dug from the riverbanks, is rhythmically pinching and coiling. She's not just making a simple bowl to hold food. She's crafting a vessel that might be used in a sacred ceremony, its surface incised with symbols of the cosmos, the sun, the water, the sky. Each piece is a prayer made tangible, a connection between the earthly and the spiritual. Her movements are practiced, efficient, a dance of creation passed down through generations. Nearby, a weaver sits at her upright loom. Her fingers fly, transforming threads of spun plant fiber and animal hair into intricate textiles. She creates not just clothing for protection against the elements, but also ceremonial blankets and sashes, their patterns telling stories of lineage, of clans, and of the great celestial events that govern their lives. The vibrant dyes, made from berries, roots, and minerals, are a testament to their deep knowledge of the natural world. The gentle asterisk, clack asterisk of the loom weights is another percussive beat in the city's morning rhythm. Now, let's turn our attention back to the plaza itself. It's not just an empty space, it's the city's circulatory system. Traders are arriving, having traveled for weeks, even months, along the vast network of rivers that converge here. One group has brought copper, mined from the Great Lakes region, far to the north. It gleams in the sunlight, a precious metal that will be worked by skilled craftsmen into sacred ornaments and symbols of status for the city's elite. Another group, from the south, has paddled up the Mississippi with canoes laden with seashells from the Gulf of Mexico. TC saves, particularly the large whelk shells, are highly prized. They'll be carved into intricate gorgets, depicting supernatural beings and cosmic scenes, worn by leaders and priests during important rituals. The plaza is a marketplace of goods, but also of ideas, languages, and cultures. You can hear a dozen different dialects spoken here. It's a testament to Cahokia's influence, a gravitational center that pulled people from hundreds of miles away. They weren't just trading goods. They were exchanging knowledge, news, and beliefs, weaving a complex social fabric that spanned a huge portion of the continent. The air is filled with the smells of wood smoke, cooking, corn, damp earth, and the distant, fishy scent of the river. As the sun climbs higher, the energy in the plaza shifts. The children, having finished their morning chores, are now playing. Their laughter echoes across the open space as they play a game of chunky. A player rolls a small, smooth stone disc across the packed earth of the plaza, and the others throw their spears, trying to land them as close as possible to where the stone will stop. It's more than just a game. It's a way to practice skills, a form of public spectacle, and for some, a high-stakes competition with deep social and ritual significance. The crowd cheers and groans with each throw, their focus absolute. Life here is profoundly intertwined with the spiritual. The very layout of the city is a map of their cosmology. The mounds, like Monks Mound, are not just piles of dirt. They are man-made mountains, sacred spaces that elevated the homes and temples of the chiefs and priests closer to the sky world. From the summit of Monks Mound, the paramount chief, believed to be a descendant of the sun itself, would have overseen the city. His presence, his leadership, was the organizing principle of Cahokian society. He was the link between the people and the gods, the agricultural cycle, the daily crafts, the long-distanced trade. It all revolved around a calendar of rituals and ceremonies that sanctified their world. A successful hunt, a bountiful harvest, a victory over an enemy. All were celebrated with communal feasts, music, dance, and ceremony right here in this plaza. The community gathered, their collective energy focused, reaffirming their social bonds and their place in the cosmos. The sounds of drums, rattles, and flutes would have filled the air. The flickering light of torches dancing across the faces of thousands of people as they participated in these powerful, unifying events. Imagine standing here as the sun sets, casting long shadows from the great mounds. The day's work is done. The traders are packing their goods. Families are gathering around their hearths, and the aroma of evening meals fills the air. The rhythm of the city slows, the hum becoming a murmur. The plaza, once a stage for the day's commerce and games, now becomes a place of quiet reverence under a blanket of stars. To the west, a circle of large wooden posts stands silhouetted against the fading light. This is Woodhenge, a solar calendar that marked the solstices and equinoxes, the celestial events that dictated the cycles of planting, harvesting, and ritual. The priests would have watched from here, interpreting the movements of the sun and stars, and announcing the sacred times for the community. It's a powerful reminder that for the people of Cahokia, there was no separation between the practical and the sacred, between astronomy and agriculture, between leadership and religion. It was all one unified, intricate system. Life in Cahokia was a delicate balance, a complex society built on cooperation, a deep understanding of their environment, and a powerful shared faith. Standing in the ghostly silence of the now empty plaza, we can almost feel the echoes of that vibrant life, the laughter of children, the chants of priests, the murmur of the marketplace. It wasn't a primitive world, but a sophisticated, dynamic civilization that rose, flourished, and eventually faded, leaving behind these monumental earthworks as a silent testament to its former glory. Thank you for joining me on this journey back to the heart of Cahokia. It is a powerful experience to walk this sacred ground and imagine the world that once existed here. If you found this glimpse into the past as fascinating as I do, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into forgotten histories. Your support helps us continue to tell these incredible stories. Until next time, stay curious. Welcome back to our journey through ancient America. Today, we re-venturing into the heart of Mississippian society to understand the people who built the magnificent mounds that still dot our landscape. What were they? How did they live? Let's find out. Imagine a bustling city like Cahokia, teeming with life. This society wasn't a simple, flat structure. It was a complex pyramid of people, a chiefdom, organized into distinct social classes. At the very foundation were the commoners. These were the farmers, the artisans, the builders, the backbone of the entire civilization. They worked the fertile fields along the rivers, cultivating maize, beans, and squash. They were the potters, crafting the vessels needed for daily life and ceremony. They were the laborers who moved millions of cubic feet of earth, basket by basket, to construct the colossal mounds. Their collective efforts sustained everyone. Above the commoners were the nobles, a class of elites who enjoyed a higher status. Think of them as the managers and administrators of the chiefdom. They might have been clan leaders, esteemed warriors, or individuals from prominent families. They lived in larger houses, often situated on smaller, lower mounds, distinguishing them from the general populace. They likely had access to more resources and prestige goods, like finely crafted ornaments made from shell, copper, and other exotic materials obtained through extensive trade networks. Their position wasn't just about wealth. It was about lineage and a deep connection to the community's history and power structure. At the apex of this social pyramid stood the priests and, above all, the chief. The priests were the keepers of sacred knowledge. They understood the calendar, tracked the movements of the sun and stars, and knew the ancient rituals. They were the intermediaries between the physical world and the spirit world, conducting the ceremonies that kept the cosmos in balance. They were the intellectuals and spiritual guides of their time, holding immense influence over the community's beliefs and actions. And then there was the chief, the paramount leader. This individual wasn't just a king or a political ruler. They were seen as something more. The chief was the ultimate political, military, and, most importantly, spiritual authority. In the Mississippian worldview, the chief was often considered a direct descendant of the sun, the most powerful deity. This divine connection gave them the sacred right to rule. They lived atop the largest mounds, in grand structures that physically placed them closer to the heavens and symbolically above everyone else. The chief's role was twofold. Politically, they made the major decisions for the community. They managed the collection and redistribution of food and goods, ensuring the community's survival. They organized large-scale public works, like the construction of mounds and plazas. They were also the commander-in-chief, leading warriors in defense or in conflicts with neighboring chiefdoms. Their ability to command and organize thousands of people was a testament to their immense power, but their spiritual role was arguably even more crucial. As the brother of the sun, the chief was the primary conduit between the people and the divine. Their well-being was directly linked to the well-being of the entire society. It was their responsibility to perform the most sacred rituals to ensure bountiful harvests, successful hunts, and victory in battle. They were the living embodiment of the cosmic order. The health of the chief mirrored the health of the land and the people. If the crops failed or a disaster struck, it could be seen as a sign of the chief's weakening connection to the spirit world. So, how is this complex social order maintained and reinforced? The answer lies in ceremony. Public rituals were the lifeblood of Mississippian society. These weren't just religious events. They were grand theatrical performances that brought the entire community together and made the social structure tangible. Picture the great plaza at the base of the main mound. Thousands of people are gathered. The air is thick with the smoke of sacred fires and the rhythmic beat of drums and rattles. Dancers in elaborate costumes, adorned with feathers and shells, move in unison. At the center of it all, high on the mound, is the chief, dressed in spectacular regalia, perhaps a feathered cape, copper ornaments, and a headdress symbolizing his divine authority. These ceremonies were tied to the agricultural cycle and celestial events, like the solstices, and a key ritual was the green corn ceremony, or busk, which marked the first harvest of the New Year's corn. This was a time of renewal and purification. Old fires were extinguished, homes were cleaned, and all debts and grievances from the previous year were forgiven. Then, a new, sacred fire was kindled in the temple, and from this fire, every household in the community relit their own hearth. This symbolized a collective rebirth and reaffirmed the unity of the people under the chief. During these events, the social hierarchy was on full display. The commoners watched from the plaza, the nobles occupied privileged positions, and the priests and the chief conducted the rituals from the sacred space of the mound. It visually reinforced everyone's place in the world. By participating, whether as an observer or a central actor, every individual acknowledged and accepted this order. The ceremonies weren't just about worshiping gods. They were about reinforcing the social contract and ensuring the stability and cohesion of the entire chief. They demonstrated that everyone, from the farmer to the chief, had a vital role to play in maintaining cosmic balance and community harmony. These powerful rituals, this divine leadership, and this structured society allowed the Mississippian culture to flourish for centuries, creating a legacy that continues to fascinate and inspire us today. The people of the mounds were not just builders of Earth. They were builders of a complex and deeply spiritual world. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel for more journeys into the past. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter. We'll see you next time. Welcome back to our journey through ancient Cahokia. Today, we venture beyond the Great Mounds to unravel a mystery that connects the earth to the heavens. Imagine standing in a vast, open plaza, surrounded by a perfect circle of massive red cedar posts, each one taller than a person, reaching towards the sky. This isn't just a random arrangement. It's a sophisticated astronomical observatory, a celestial clock built by a people deeply in tune with the rhythms of the cosmos. This incredible structure, which archaeologists have named Woodhenge, in homage to its famous British counterpart, was Cahokia's sacred calendar. The city's inhabitants didn't have clocks or digital calendars, but they had something far more profound, a direct connection to the sun's journey across the sky. The placement of these posts was a work of genius. From a specific central observation post, the priests or astronomers of Cahokia could watch the sunrise align with different posts throughout the year, marking crucial moments in their calendar. Let's step into their shoes. Picture yourself rising before dawn, the air cool and still. You walk to the center of this sacred circle. As the first light of dawn paints the eastern horizon, you watch as the sun peaks over the horizon, perfectly framed by a specific post. If it aligns with one particular post, you know it's the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, a time for introspection and the promise of the sun's return. It was a signal that the harshest part of winter would soon pass and that longer, warmer days were on their way. Then, as the seasons turned, you would watch the sunrise point shift along the horizon. Another post would mark the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, a celebration of light, growth, and abundance. This alignment told the people it was the peak of the growing season, a time of maximum solar power, and a moment for grand community festivals. These solstices weren't just astronomical events. They were the anchors of Cahokian life, dictating when to plant, when to harvest. and went to gather for society's most important ceremonies. And what about the points in between? Equally important were the equinoxes. Twice a year, during the spring and fall, equinoxes, day and night, are of nearly equal length. A special post in the Woodhenge circle would align with the rising sun on these days. The spring equinox was a vital signal for planting corn, beans, and squash, the three sisters that sustained the city. It marked the beginning of a new agricultural cycle, a time of renewal and hope. The fall equinox, in turn, signaled the time for the final harvest, a period to gather the fruits of their labor and prepare for the coming winter. The Woodhenge was more than just a tool. It was the heart of the city's spiritual and agricultural life. It provided order and predictability in a world governed by nature. The ability to forecast these key dates gave the leaders of Cahokia immense power and prestige. They weren't just rulers, they were keepers of time, mediators between the earthly realm and the celestial world. This knowledge would have been seen as a divine gift, reinforcing their authority and ensuring the community's trust. They could tell people when to prepare the fields and when to store their food, ensuring the survival and prosperity of thousands. Archaeologists have identified at least 5 different Woodhenges, built at different times, each slightly larger and with more posts than the last. The most complete one, known as Woodhenge 3, was built around the year 1100 and had 48 posts. Why 48? The number likely held deep symbolic meaning that we are still working to understand. It might relate to cycles of the moon, or perhaps to elements of their mythology that have been lost to time. The use of sacred red cedar, a wood known for its durability and reddish hue, further suggests the spiritual significance of the structure. For the Cahokians, these weren't just wooden poles. They were sacred pillars connecting the underworld, the earth, and the sky. Think about the poetry of this act, standing at the center of the world, Astay Sawit, and watching time itself unfold. It wasn't about looking at a number on a screen. It was about feeling the change of the seasons in the air, seeing it written in the sky, and knowing your place within the grand, cyclical dance of the universe. The sunrise wasn't just a daily event. It was a daily communion with the cosmos, a reaffirmation of order, and a message from the gods. Each sunrise through those posts was a promise of a new day, a new season, and the enduring rhythm of life itself. The mystery of Woodhenge reminds us that ancient peoples were not primitive. They were keen observers, brilliant engineers, and profound thinkers. They built monuments, not just of earth and wood, but of time and light. Their legacy is a testament to the universal human desire to understand our world and find our place within the cosmos. The circle of posts may be gone, but their shadows still stretch across the centuries, inviting us to look up at the sky and wonder. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of Cahokia's incredible solar calendar. If you found this journey into the past as fascinating as I did, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into ancient mysteries. We have so much more to uncover together. See you in the next chapter. Welcome back to our journey into the past. Today, we're diving into Chapter 10, Trade Networks Across a Continent. We're going to explore how one of North America's greatest ancient cities, Cahokia, became the center of a vast and intricate network that connected people across thousands of miles. It's a story of trade, culture, and power, long before Columbus ever set sail. So, what was Cahokia? Imagine a bustling city right in the heart of North America, near modern-day St. Louis. At its peak, around 1100 AD, it was larger than London was at the time, with a population of up to 20,000 people. Its landscape was dominated by massive earthen mounds, the largest of which, Monks Mound, stands taller than a 10-story building. But Cahokia wasn't an isolated metropolis. It was the hub of a continent-spanning web of relationships. How do we know this? The answer lies buried in the earth. Archaeologists have unearthed a treasure trove of artifacts at Cahokia that tell a fascinating story of long-distance connections. These aren't just locally made pots and tools. We're talking about objects from hundreds, even thousands, of miles Hawaii. Think about that for a moment. This was a world without horses, trucks, or trains. Every single item had to be transported by foot or by canal. Let's start by looking north, towards the Great Lakes region. Digs at Cahokia have revealed large quantities of copper. This wasn't just any copper. It was exceptionally pure, and geologists have traced its origin to the Quinault Peninsula of Michigan and Isle Royale in Lake Superior. The native peoples there had been mining copper for thousands of years, and they were masters at their craft. They hammered it into intricate shape saws, fish hooks, ceremonial axes, and delicate ornaments. These items traveled down a network of rivers and trails, eventually finding their way to the markets and workshops of Cahokia. The presence of so much Great Lakes copper suggests a strong, established trade relationship. It wasn't just a random exchange. It was a pipeline of precious metal flowing into the heart of the Mississippian world. Now, let's travel in the opposite direction, south to the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico. What treasures came from this region? Seashells. But not just any seashells. We're talking about large, spiral-shaped whelk shells. These shells were highly prized and incredibly symbolic. Cahokian artisans were masters at carving them. They would cut away parts of the shell to create elaborate cups for ritual drinks, or carve them into intricate pendants called gorgets. These gorgets often depicted powerful mythological figures, like the Birdman, a recurring motif in Mississippian art representing a warrior or a supernatural being. Finding these Gulf Coast shells in Illinois is like finding a piece of the tropics in the Midwest. It shows us that the reach of Cahokia's influence extended all the way to the ocean. These shells were more than just pretty objects. They carried deep cultural and spiritual meaning, connecting the people of the interior with the power and mystery of the distant sea. Our journey doesn't stop there. Let's head east towards the Appalachian Mountains, specifically the Blue Ridge Mountains of what is now North Carolina. From these ancient peaks came another exotic material, mica. Mica is a silicate mineral that naturally forms in thin, transparent, and often sparkly sheets. It's almost like a form of natural glass. The people of Cahokia clearly found it mesmerizing. They would cut this shimmering material into elaborate shapes: human hands, claws, serpents, and other symbolic designs. These cutouts were likely sewn onto ceremonial clothing, creating dazzling outfits that would have glittered in the sun during important public rituals atop the mounds. Imagine a Cahokian leader, adorned in mica and copper, standing before thousands of people. The visual power would have been immense. The journey of this fragile mineral from the mountains to the Mississippi Valley is another testament to the incredible logistical capabilities of these ancient trade networks. So, how did all of these different materials, copper from the north, shells from the south, and mica from the east, all converge on this one city? The answer flows right past Cahokia's doorstep. The Mississippi River. The Mississippi, along with its major tributaries like the Missouri and the Ohio rivers, formed a natural superhighway for transportation and communication. Think of it as the interstate system of the ancient world. Dugut, canoes, some capable of carrying tons of cargo and dozens of people, plied these waters, creating a corridor of exchange. This network was about more than just moving goods. It was a conduit for ideas, stories, and beliefs. When a trader from the Gulf Coast brought whelk shells north, they didn't just bring the shells themselves. They brought the stories associated with them, the rituals in which they were used, and the artistic styles used to carve them. This is why we see similar art styles and symbols appearing across a vast geographic area. The Birdman gorget found in Cahokia is remarkably similar to ones found in Alabama or Oklahoma. This shared iconography suggests a shared belief system, a common cultural language that was spoken and understood from the Great Lakes to the Gulf. The river network connected diverse groups of people, each with their own local traditions and resources. People from different chiefdoms would meet at trading posts, perhaps even at the great city of Cahokia itself, to exchange not only goods, but also information, forge alliances, and arrange marriages. Cahokia sat at the center of this web, not just geographically, but also politically and culturally. Its leaders likely controlled or heavily influenced key points of this trade, allowing them to accumulate wealth and prestige. This wealth, in the form of exotic goods like copper, shells, and mica, was then used to demonstrate their power and legitimize their status. Giving these rare items as gifts to allies would have cemented relationships and expanded their sphere of influence. So, when we look at an artifact found at Cahokia, we're not just looking at a single object. We're looking at the endpoint of an incredible journey. A piece of copper tells a story of miners in Michigan, of canoers navigating treacherous rivers, and of artisans in Cahokia who transformed it into an object of beauty and power. A carved shell tells a story of fishermen on the Gulf Coast, of pilgrims traveling hundreds of miles, and of the shared cosmology that united a continent. The rise and influence of Cahokia show us that North America was a dynamic and interconnected place long before European contact. It was a continent crisscrossed by networks of trade, diplomacy, and shared culture, with the mighty Mississippi River and its tributaries serving as the central arteries. The artifacts left behind are the tangible proof of this lost world. A world where a city in the middle of a continent could command resources and ideas from the mountains to the sea. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of Cahokia's incredible trade network. It's a powerful reminder of the complex and sophisticated societies that once thrived right here. If you enjoyed this journey into the past, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next chapter. We'll see you next time. Welcome back to our journey through the Mississippian world. In this chapter, we're stepping into the spiritual heart of this civilization, exploring the profound art, powerful symbols, and enduring spirit they left behind. Imagine standing in a quiet museum, looking at an object crafted 1,000 years ago. It's more than just an artifact. It's a whisper from the past, a story waiting to be heard. This is the world we're entering today, a world of shell gorgets, effigy pottery, and shimmering copper plates, where every line and every shape holds a universe of meaning. The Mississippians were master artists, and their chosen canvases were as diverse as their culture. Let's start with shell gorget. These were intricate pendants, typically carved from large marine shells, often sourced from the Gulf of Mexico and traded hundreds of miles inland. Think about that for a moment. The journey of this single material speaks volumes about their vast trade networks. These weren't just simple necklaces. They were worn over the chest, close to the heart, and served as powerful emblems of status, identity, and spiritual belief. The artists would carefully incise complex designs onto the smooth, pearlescent surface. We see swirling patterns, mythical creatures, and human figures in elaborate regalia. One of the most common motifs is the spider, a symbol of weaving, creation, and the center of the world. Another is the cross in circle, representing the sun or the four cardinal directions, say, fundamental element of their cosmology. Each gorget was a miniature masterpiece, a personal cosmos worn by its owner. Next, let's look at their pottery. Mississippian potters took a utilitarian object, a simple clay pot, and transformed it into a breathtaking work of art. They were famous for their effigy pottery, vessels shaped to look like humans, animals, and even mythological beings. You might see a pot shaped like a human head, with such detailed features: eyes, nose, mouth, even ear piercings, and tattoos that it feels like you're re-looking at a portrait of a real person from a millennium ago. These are so-called head pots, and their exact purpose is still debated by archaeologists. Were they portraits of revered ancestors, captured enemies, or something else entirely? Other pots took the form of animals central to their belief system. Owls, with their connection to the night and the spirit world. Ducks, masters of water, land, and air. And frogs, symbolizing transformation and fertility. These weren't just containers for food or water. They were active participants in daily and ceremonial life, bringing the spiritual world into the home and the public square. The craftsmanship is just astounding. They didn't have potter's wheels, yet they created these perfectly symmetrical and beautifully burnished forms, often decorated with painted or incised patterns that complemented the effigy itself. And then there was copper. For the Mississippians, copper was a sacred substance. It was soft, malleable, and had a radiant, sun-like gleam, sourced primarily from the Great Lakes region. It was another testament to their incredible trade networks. The copper wasn't smelted. It was cold-hammered into thin sheets and then worked through a process called rapousse, where the artist would press and hammer the design from the back to create a raised image on the front. The most famous examples are the large copper plates depicting what archaeologists call the birdman or falcon dancer. This is a recurring figure in Mississippian art, a human wearing a falcon mask, feathered wings, and carrying a mace or a severed head. It's a powerful, dynamic, and frankly, intimidating image. This figure represents a warrior, a chief, or perhaps a supernatural being, embodying strength, speed, and a connection to the sky realm. These plates weren't everyday items. They were likely displayed during important ceremonies or attached to the regalia of the highest-ranking leaders. Their polished surfaces flashing in the sun, projecting an aura of immense power and divine authority. The imagery found across these different mediums, shell clay, and copper, is remarkably consistent. This shared visual language is what archaeologists call the Southeastern Ceremonial Complex. It's a symbolic toolkit that connected diverse peoples across a vast geography. Let's decode some of the most important symbols. We've already mentioned the falcon, a symbol of celestial power, speed, and predation. It's often associated with warriors in the sun. Then there's the serpent, a creature of the underworld and water. You'll see horned serpents and winged serpents, complex beings that could move between the different layers of the cosmos. The serpent often symbolizes renewal, transformation, and sometimes chaos or danger. Together, the falcon and the serpent represent a core duality of Mississippian cosmology, the sky world above and the watery underworld below, with humanity living in the middle world between them. Another powerful and pervasive symbol is the sunburst. It appears as a circle with rays emanating from it, often incised on pottery or shell. The sun was a primary deity for many Mississippian peoples. It represented life, light, warmth, and agricultural fertility. The great chiefs were often considered the sun's earthly representatives, their power directly linked to this celestial being, the cyclical nature of the sun rising and setting. Its journey through the sky, marking the seasons, mirrored the cycles of life, death, and rebirth that were central to their worldview. These symbols weren't just decoration. They were a form of writing, a way of communicating complex ideas about religion, social structure, and the nature of the universe. When a chief wore a gorget with a falcon on it or drank from a cup shaped like an owl, they weren't just using an object. They were performing their identity and reinforcing the cosmic order. The art made the abstract beliefs of their culture tangible and visible for everyone to see. Now, let's take a moment for some calm reflection. What does all this art tell us? When we look at these objects, we're not just seeing beautiful things. We are hearing the voice of a vanished civilization. Their cities have crumbled, their language is largely lost to time, but their art remains as a powerful testament to their spirit. It speaks of a people deeply connected to the natural world, who saw the sacred in the flight of a falcon and the curve of a seashell. It tells of a society with a rich ceremonial life, where art was not separate from daily existence, but woven into its very fabric. It reveals a sophisticated understanding of cosmology, of balance, and of the powerful forces that govern the universe. The care and skill invested in each piece show us that this was a culture that valued beauty, precision, and meaning. Think about the artist, sitting by a fire 1,000 years ago, patiently scraping a design into a piece of shell. What were they thinking? Were they praying? Were they channeling a story passed down through generations? We can't know for sure, but the art allows us to feel a connection, to bridge the immense gap of time. These artifacts are more than just data for archaeologists. They are relics of the human spirit. They are a reminder that long before our modern world, people looked at the sky, the earth, and the water, and they sought to understand their place within it all. They used art to express their fears, their hopes, and their most profound beliefs. In the graceful lines of an effigy pot or the shimmering form of a copper plate, the Mississippian soul endures. Their art is their legacy, a silent but eloquent story of who they were. And so, as we conclude our look at Mississippian art, we're left with a sense of awe and deep respect. Through these symbols and spirits captured in clay, shell, and copper, we've caught a glimpse into the heart of their world. It's a world that, while gone, continues to speak to us through the enduring power of art. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the art and soul of the Mississippian culture. I hope it's given you a new appreciation for these incredible people. If you enjoyed this journey, Please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and ringing that bell so you don't miss our next chapter. We love hearing from you, so please share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious. Welcome back to our journey through history. Today, in Chapter 12, we step into a world lit by fire and guided by the rhythm of the drum. We're about to witness the great ceremonies. Imagine standing on the edge of a vast, open plaza. The sun has dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of deep purple and orange. The air, once filled with the sounds of daily life, now hums with a different kind of energy and anticipation that you can feel in your very bones. This is where it all began. Look towards the central mound. Torches flicker to life, their flames dancing like living spirits against the deepening twilight. Their warm glow illuminates the faces of the people gathering, a community united by a shared purpose and a deep, unspoken understanding. These aren't just points of light, they are beacons, calling the community together, separating the sacred space of the ceremony from the ordinary world. And then, the first sound breaks the silence. A low, resonant beat from a wooden drum. It starts softly, a heartbeat echoing the pulse of the earth itself. Another drum joins in, then another, weaving a complex tapestry of rhythm that seems to pull the very stars from the sky. This is the call to gather, the ancient language of a people deeply connected to the world around them. As the drumming builds, figures emerge into the firelight. They are adorned with feathers, shells, and pigments that tell stories of the earth, the sky, and the spirit world. Their movements are not just dances. They are prayers in motion. Each step, each turn, each gesture is a deliberate act of communication with the forces that govern their lives. Some dances are slow and graceful, mirroring the gentle flow of a river or the swaying of tall grass in the wind. Others are energetic and powerful, stomping the ground to awaken the spirits of the earth, their bodies moving in a synchronized expression of strength and vitality. The plaza transforms into a living theater. It's a space where the boundaries between the physical and the spiritual blur. The fire isn't just for light and warmth. It's a central actor in the drama, a portal to the world of the spirits. Its crackling flames are believed to carry messages and offerings upwards, a direct line of communication to the cosmos. The smoke that curls into the night sky is a sacred incense, cleansing the space and the people within it, carrying their hopes and prayers to the heavens. The entire community is part of this. They are not passive spectators. Their voices rise in chants, ancient melodies that have been passed down through countless generations. The words speak of creation, of the harvest, of the changing seasons, and of their ancestors who walked this land before them. The sound is mesmerizing, a powerful wave of human voices, blending with the drumming and the crackling of the fire, creating a single, unified expression of belief. This is a holistic experience. The smell of burning cedar and sage fills the air, a scent that is both grounding and spiritually uplifting. The taste of shared ritual foods, prepared with intention and gratitude, connects them to the bounty of the land. The feel of the earth beneath their bare feet is a constant reminder of their connection to their mother, the source of all life. It's a complete sensory immersion into the sacred. These ceremonies were the anchors of their society. They marked the turning of the seasons, celebrated successful hunts and harvests, initiated the young into adulthood, and honored the dead. There were moments when the community came together to reaffirm their shared identity, to resolve conflicts, and to restore balance to their world. In a life that was often uncertain, these rituals provided a sense of order, meaning, and profound connection. Think of it. Under a vast, star-filled sky, a community is dancing, singing, and drumming around a sacred fire. They are not just performing a ritual. They are actively participating in the cosmic order. They are blending earth, spirit, and community into one indivisible whole. The energy is palpable, a powerful current of shared emotion and belief that strengthens the bonds between every single person present. As the night wears on, the drumming might soften, the dancing might become more meditative. It's a time for reflection, for individuals to connect with their own spirit and with the greater mystery of the universe. The firelight casts long, shifting shadows, creating a world that is both real and dreamlike. In these moments, it was believed that the veil between worlds was at its thinnest, and one could glimpse the true nature of existence. These great ceremonies, were the lifeblood of their culture. They were the stories they told, the beliefs they held, and the values they lived by, all brought to life in a spectacular display of devotion and community. They were a powerful reminder that they were part of something much larger than themselves, a family, a tribe, a universe, all moving to the same ancient, sacred rhythm. As the first light of dawn begins to touch the eastern sky, the ceremony draws to a close. The drums fall silent. The last embers of the fire glow softly, and a sense of peaceful exhaustion settles over the plaza. The community, renewed and reconnected, prepares to face a new day, carrying the power and the peace of the ceremony within them. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey back in time. It's truly humbling to imagine these incredible moments. If you found this as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button and subscribe for more chapters of our story. We love having you in our community. Until next time, stay curious. Welcome back to our journey through the rise and fall of ancient civilizations. Today, in Chapter 13, we're digging into the very foundation of the great city of Cahokia, its food, its fields, and the ever-present threat of floods. What did it take to feed a city of tens of thousands 1,000 years ago? Let's find out. Imagine vast, sprawling fields stretching out from the base of Monks Mound. This was Cahokia's breadbasket, and the star of the show was corn, or maize. But the Cahokians were brilliant They knew that relying on a single crop was risky. So, they practiced a system we now call the Three Sisters. They grew corn, beans, and squash together in a symbiotic relationship. The corn stalks provided a natural trellis for the beans to climb. The beans, in turn, fixed nitrogen in the soil, enriching it for the other plants. And the large, sprawling leaves of the squash plants created a living mulch, shading the ground to retain moisture and prevent weeds from taking over. It was a perfect, self-sustaining system, a testament to their deep understanding of the natural world. This trio of crops provided a balanced diet: carbohydrates from the corn, protein from the beans, and essential vitamins and minerals from the squash. But their diet wasn't just plant-based. Cahokia was strategically located near the confluence of major rivers, including the mighty Mississippi. These waterways were teeming with life. Archaeological evidence, like fishhooks made from bone and vast quantities of fish scales found in ancient trash pits, tells us that fishing was a massive part of their economy. They harvested catfish, bass, sunfish, and buffalo fish, providing a crucial and reliable source of protein and healthy fats. This access to both fertile land and abundant rivers gave Cahokia a dual advantage, allowing its population to boom and its influence to spread. However, the very thing that gave Cahokia life, water, also held the power to take it all away. The city was built on a floodplain. While the annual, gentle floods were predictable and even beneficial, depositing nutrient-rich silt that made the fields incredibly fertile. A major flood was a different story entirely. Climate is not a constant, and the period when Cahokia flourished, known as the medieval warm period, was generally favorable. But it wasn't perfect. We see evidence in the soil layers of major flood events, some of which would have been catastrophic. Picture a year where the rains are heavier than usual, where the snow melt up north is rapid and immense. The rivers would swell not just by feet, but by dozens of feet. A massive flood could wipe out an entire season's worth of crops in a matter of days. It could inundate the lower-lying residential areas, destroying homes and contaminating food stores. For a society so densely populated and so dependent on a successful harvest, a single bad flood could spell disaster, leading to famine, social unrest, and a crisis of faith in the leaders who were believed to mediate with the gods for prosperity. The Cahokians were acutely aware of this danger. They built their most important structures, the mounds, high above the floodplain, not just for symbolic reasons, but for practical ones too. The mounds were safe havens, elevated platforms that kept the elite in the sacred temples dry when the world below was underwater. This brings us to the core theme of Cahokia's story, the delicate and often precarious balance between human ambition and the forces of nature. The Cahokians were masters of their environment. To a point, they engineered the landscape, clearing vast tracts of forests for their fields and for the timber needed to build their city and its massive defensive palisade. This deforestation, however, had unintended consequences. Without the trees and their root systems to hold the soil in place, erosion would have increased dramatically. This meant more topsoil washed into the rivers, potentially making floods even worse and more destructive. They were pushing their environment to its absolute limit to sustain their growing population and their complex society. They were building a metropolis in a place that was both a Garden of Eden and a potential death trap. This constant negotiation with nature, harnessing its bounty while trying to defend against its fury, defined life in Cahokia. Every planting season was a gamble. Every spring thaw a source of anxiety. The prosperity of one year could be washed away by the next. This tension is crucial to understanding not just how Cahokia rose to such great heights, but also why it may have ultimately been abandoned. The same forces that enabled their success may have also contained the seeds of their decline. Think about it. The more people you have, the more food you need. The more food you need, the more land you must clear. The more land you clear, the more vulnerable you become to the very floods that make the land fertile in the first place. It was a high-stakes game of survival and expansion, played out on the banks of the Mississippi River 1,000 years ago. The story of Cahokia's food, fields, and floods is a powerful reminder that even the most advanced societies are ultimately dependent on the natural world, and that this relationship is always a delicate dance. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the heartland of ancient America. The story of Cahokia is a fascinating look at human ingenuity and resilience. If you enjoyed this video and want to continue exploring the mysteries of the past with us, please hit that like button. And do you and forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you won't miss our next chapter. We'll see you next time. Hello everyone and welcome back to our journey through the rise and fall of ancient civilizations. Today, we stand at a pivotal moment in our story of Cahokia. We're in chapter 14, where we'll explore the incredible power, but also the profound fragility of this magnificent city. Imagine standing here around the year 1100 AD. The air is thick with the sounds of a bustling metropolis. The city of Cahokia is at its absolute zenith, its peak. It's a sprawling urban center, the largest north of what is now Mexico. How many people lived here? Archaeologists estimate a core population of somewhere between 15,000 and 20,000 people. To put that in perspective, that's larger than London was at the same time. This wasn't just a village, it was a city in every sense of the word. Think about the sheer logistics of that. 15,000 mouths to feed every single day. 15,000 people needing shelter, water, and a place within the social fabric. The Grand Plaza would have been a kaleidoscope of activity markets, overflowing with goods from hundreds of miles away. Ceremonies that brought together thousands of participants, and the constant hum of different languages and dialects from visiting communities. From the top of Monks Mound, the paramount chief would have looked down upon a domain that was powerful, influential, and seemed, for all intents and purposes, eternal. The scale of the mounds, the precision of the wood henges, the complexity of the society all spoke of a civilization that had mastered its environment. This was Cahokia, the powerful, the center of the Mississippian world. But with great power comes great pressure. A city of this magnitude is like a living organism, and its needs are immense. Supporting 15,000 people requires a vast and continuous supply of resources. Let's start with the most basic. Food. The fertile American bottom was a blessing, allowing for intensive maize agriculture. But farming on this scale, year after year, century after century, begins to take its toll. The soil becomes depleted of nutrients, leading to diminishing returns. Did they face crop failures? Were there years of drought or flood that pushed the agricultural system to its breaking point? A single bad harvest could spell disaster for a population so densely packed. Then there's the demand for wood. Every house needed timber for its frame. Every family needed firewood for cooking and for warmth during the harsh Midwestern winters. And most visibly, the massive public works projects, the mounds and palisades, the construction of the defensive palisade alone, which enclosed the central precinct, is estimated to have required some 20,000 mature oak and hickory trees, and they had to rebuild it multiple times. You can just imagine the forests surrounding Cahokia shrinking, the tree line receding further and further away. This deforestation would have had cascading effects. It would have driven away game animals, a crucial source of protein. It would have led to increased soil erosion and more severe flooding, as there were fewer trees to hold the soil in place and absorb rainwater. The very act of building and sustaining the city was slowly but surely undermining the environment that made it possible. And what about the people themselves? Living in such close quarters can breed its own set of problems. Sanitation becomes a major challenge, with thousands of people living side by side. How do you manage waste? How do you ensure a clean water supply? The risk of disease spreading through the population would have been constant and terrifying. Archaeologists examining skeletal remains from this period have found evidence of health problems, like malnutrition and infectious diseases, suggesting that life for the average Cahokian was becoming harder. The dream of the big city might have been turning into a difficult reality for many. Beyond the physical stresses, we must consider the social tensions. Cahokian society was highly stratified. You had the elite, who lived in comfort atop the mounds, and the commoners, who did the farming, the building, and the labor that kept the city running. Was this division always accepted? As resources became scarcer and life became tougher, did resentment begin to build? Imagine being a farmer, working harder each year for a smaller harvest, and seeing the granaries of the elite still full. Imagine being forced to contribute your labor to build another massive mound while your own family struggled. These are the classic ingredients for social unrest. The construction of the defensive palisade itself is a huge clue. Why do you build a tomb-long wall around the heart of your city? It suggests a threat. Was this threat from external enemies, rival chiefdoms, who were growing in power and envying Cahokia's wealth? Or, more chillingly, was the wall meant to protect the elite from their own people? Perhaps it served both purposes. It as a powerful symbol that the golden age of peace and unquestioned authority was coming to an end. The city was turning inward, becoming more defensive, more fearful. And so, the whispers begin. A quiet murmur of doubt that spreads through the markets and the cornfields. You can almost hear it on the wind. The harvests are smaller this year. Did you hear about the sickness in the western quarter? They are asking for more tribute again. The leaders don't seem as powerful as they once were. Perhaps the gods are displeased. For a society built on a shared belief system, where the leaders were seen as intermediaries to the gods, a string of bad luck pour. Harvests, disease, environmental disasters could be interpreted as a sign of cosmic failure, a sign that the leaders had lost their sacred power. This is the beginning of the end. It's not a single, dramatic event, but a slow, creeping decline. Unraveling. The monumental power of Cahokia, which seems so solid and permanent, was built on a fragile foundation, a foundation of environmental stability, social cohesion, and shared faith. As each of these pillars began to crack under the immense weight of the city itself, the entire structure started to become unstable. The power was immense, but the fragility was always there, lurking just beneath the surface. The city had grown too large, its demands too great. It had, in a sense, become a victim of its own incredible success. The whispers of decline were growing louder, heralding the twilight of this once great American metropolis. Thank you so much for joining me on this chapter of our exploration. It's a fascinating and sobering look at how even the greatest societies can face immense challenges. If you found this interesting, please hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next chapter, where we'll witness the final abandonment of this incredible city. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time. Upbeat, mysterious music intro fades into the background. Hello, and welcome back to our journey through history. For weeks, we've marveled at the rise of a magnificent civilization, its towering structures, its bustling cities, and its intricate culture. But every story has an ending, and today we arrive at the most enigmatic chapter of all. Chapter 15, Decline and Departure. Slight shift in tone to be more somber and inquisitive. Imagine this. It's the year 1300. The plazas we've pictured, once teeming with life, begin to quiet. The vibrant markets grow sparse. The rhythmic beat of drums that echoed through the valleys starts to fade, one by one, until there's only silence. This wasn't a sudden cataclysm, a single event that wiped the slate clean. Instead, it was a slow, gradual exodus, a great emptying that took place over generations. The question that has haunted archaeologists and historians for centuries is, why? Why would a people abandon the homes their ancestors had built over centuries? There isn't one simple answer, but rather a web of interconnected possibilities. Let's start with the most powerful force of all: nature. Deep-seated in the story of this region is the ever-present threat of drought. Tree ring data and sediment cores from ancient lakes paint a grim picture. Around this time, a series of prolonged, severe droughts struck the land. Year after year, the rains failed. The corn, beans, and squash that sustained the population withered in the fields. The reservoirs, marvels of engineering, dried up, their cracked bottoms exposed to the relentless sun. A single bad harvest is a crisis. A decade of them is a catastrophe. Imagine the mounting desperation. The granaries, once full, would have dwindled. The people would have watched the skies, their prayers for rain going unanswered. For a society so deeply connected to the agricultural cycle, this wasn't just an economic problem, it was a spiritual one. The gods, it seemed, had turned their backs. This environmental pressure would have created immense social stress, pushing the entire system to its breaking point. It's hard to stay in a place that can no longer feed you. But climate change rarely acts alone. It often fans the flames of human conflict. As resources like water and fertile land became scarcer, competition would have intensified. Peaceful neighbors can become desperate rivals when survival is at stake. Archaeological evidence from this period points to an increase in warfare. We find settlements built in more defensive locations, perched on high mesas, or protected by thick walls. We find evidence of burned villages and unburied bodies, tragic testaments to violent clashes. This wasn't necessarily large-scale organized warfare like we might imagine. It could have been a constant, low-level state of raiding and conflict, a cycle of attack and reprisal that made daily life precarious and dangerous. The trust between communities would have eroded, replaced by fear and suspicion. The great trade networks that connected the region would have fractured, isolating communities and making them even more vulnerable. The world, which once seemed so large and interconnected, would have shrunk to the size of one's own defended village. Then, there's the invisible enemy: disease. While we lack direct evidence of a single, devastating plague, the conditions were ripe for it. Malnutrition from failing crops weakens the immune system. People crowded into denser, more defensive settlements creates the perfect environment for diseases to spread like wildfire. A sickness that might have been manageable in times of plenty could have become a deadly epidemic in a population already stressed by hunger and conflict. The historical record is filled with examples of societies brought to their knees by epidemics, and it's a very real possibility that disease played a significant role in this great departure. Beyond these external pressures, we must also look within. Societies are not just victims of circumstance. They are dynamic, living things that can change from the inside out. Some scholars propose that profound social and religious changes were underway. Perhaps the ruling elite, the priests and chiefs who organized society, lost their authority. If their rituals and prayers could no longer bring rain or ensure prosperity, why should the people continue to follow them? A crisis of faith could have led to a breakdown of the social order. Imagine new ideologies or religious movements emerging, offering different answers and new hope. These new ideas might have encouraged people to leave the old centers, to seek a new spiritual beginning elsewhere. The abandonment might not have been just a flight from hardship, but a deliberate pilgrimage, a conscious choice to create a new way of life. The great houses and ceremonial kivas were not just buildings. They were symbols of a particular worldview. In leaving them behind, the people may have been leaving behind an entire belief system that no longer served them. So, we have a perfect storm of possibilities. A devastating drought starving the people, escalating warfare, making life unsafe, the silent threat of disease, and a potential crisis of faith tearing at the social fabric. It was likely not one of these factors, but all of them, weaving together into an inescapable net. The decision to leave would have been agonizing. This was their home, the land of their ancestors, filled with sacred sites and family memories. The departure itself was a process. Families would have packed what they could carry: seeds for the next crop, essential tools, precious ceremonial items. They would have looked back one last time at the homes they would never see again, and then turned their faces toward the horizon, moving in smaller groups, searching for a new beginning. They didn't vanish. They emigrated, joining other communities or establishing new ones in river valleys where water was more reliable. Their descendants are still with us today, carrying the stories and traditions of their ancestors. The Pueblo peoples of the American Southwest, for example, hold oral histories that speak of these great migrations. Their story didn't end. It transformed. The plazas fell silent. The hearths grew cold. The windswept whispers through empty doorways replaced the sound of children's laughter. The civilization, as it was, ceased to be, but the people endured. Their departure is not just a story of collapse, but a testament to human resilience, adaptability, and the enduring quest for a better life. It's a powerful reminder that even in the face of overwhelming challenges, the human spirit presses onward. Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible exploration. It's been an honor to share this story with you. If you've enjoyed this series, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more journeys into the past. We'll see you next time. Hello, history buffs, and welcome back to our journey through the Mississippian world. In our previous explorations, we spent a lot of time at the magnificent city of Cahokia, the largest pre-Columbian settlement north of Mexico. But Cahokia wasn't an isolated metropolis. It was the radiant sun in a galaxy of interconnected communities, a network of towns and ceremonial centers that spanned the American Southeast. Today, we're broadening our horizons to explore the vast legacy of the Mississippian culture, venturing into other major centers like Moundville, Etowah, and Spiro. We'll see how this incredible civilization wasn't just one city, but a sprawling world of shared beliefs, trade, and tradition that left an indelible mark on the landscape. Get ready to discover how the influence of these ancient peoples echoed for centuries across the land. So, where do we begin our tour? Let's travel south from Cahokia, down to the Black Warrior River in what is now Alabama. Here, we find the incredible sight of Mount. Imagine a bustling city, second in size and power only to Cahokia itself. At its peak, around the year 1250, Moundville was a powerhouse, home to perhaps 1,000 people within its palisaded walls, with 10 times that number living in the surrounding villages and farmsteads. The site is arranged in a breathtaking layout. 29 massive earthen mounds organized around a vast central plaza. This wasn't a haphazard arrangement. It was a carefully planned cosmic map. The largest mounds, where the elite leaders and priests lived, were situated on the northern side of the plaza, while the mounds for the commoners and various clan activities were on the southern side. This layout reflects a society with a clear social structure, a hierarchy that was mirrored in the very geography of their city. Moundville wasn't just a political center, it was a deeply spiritual one. Archaeologists have unearthed some of the most stunning artifacts of the Mississippian era right here. We're talking about finely crafted pottery, engraved shell, gorgets, and ceremonial stone palettes. Many of these items are decorated with a consistent set of symbols and motifs known as the Southeastern Ceremonial Complex. Think of it as a shared religious iconography that connected people from Moundville to Cahokia and beyond. These symbols, like the forked eye, the sun circle, and various human-bird composite figures, tell us about their beliefs in a layered universe, powerful deities, and the journey of the soul after death. Moundville, in many ways, was a pilgrimage site, a place where people from all over the region would gather for massive ceremonies, to trade goods, and to participate in the spiritual life of their world. It was a place of immense power and sacred meaning. Now, let's journey northeast into the rolling hills of present-day Georgia, near the Etowah River. Here lies another jewel of the Mississippian world. The Etowah Mounds. While perhaps not as large as Moundville in population, Etowah was a crucial political and ceremonial hub for over 500 years. The site is dominated by 3 main platform mounds, imaginatively named Mound A, Mound B, and Mound C, all surrounding a central plaza. Mound A is the star of the show. Standing over 60 feet tall, It's one of the most perfectly preserved Mississippian mounds in the entire country. Imagine the chief priest, adorned in elaborate regalia, standing atop this man-made mountain addressing the thousands gathered in the plaza below. It would have been a sight of awe-inspiring authority and spiritual power. Like other Mississippian centers, a defensive ditch and palisade once protected the Sacred Heart of Etowah, a clear sign that life in this era, for all its cultural achievements, was not always peaceful. What makes Etowah particularly fascinating is the wealth of artifacts discovered there, especially within the burials of the elite in Mount C. Here, archaeologists found incredible treasures that speak to Etowah's far-reaching connections. We're talking about copper plates from the Great Lakes region, embossed with intricate designs of dancing warriors and supernatural beings. We see shell gorgets from the Gulf Coast and beautifully crafted stone statues. The most famous of these are a pair of seated figures, a male and a female, carved from Georgia marble. These aren't just generic statues. They are believed to be representations of founding ancestors, revered figures who connected the living community to its sacred origins. These artifacts show us that Etowah was a major player in the Mississippian trade network, a cosmopolitan center where goods, ideas, and people from across the eastern half of the continent converged. The art of Etowah gives us a direct window into the souls of its most powerful residents. Our final major stop takes us west, to the banks of the Arkansas River in eastern Oklahoma, to a site known as Spiro. Spiro is different. While Moundville and Etowah were classic, organized ceremonial towns, Spiro seems to have functioned more as a unique gateway and ceremonial repository. It was a place of immense spiritual significance, not necessarily for a large resident population, but as a gathering point. And crucially, a mortuary center for the entire region. The people of Spiro and the surrounding Cahokia Mississippian culture were masters of long-distance trade. They controlled the flow of goods from the Great Plains, like bison hides and a special type of rock from the Ozarks called novaculite, which was perfect for making tools. They traded these westward goods for shell and copper from the east, making Spiro a vibrant crossroads of culture. But Spiro's greatest claim to fame, and its most tragic story, comes from what archaeologists call the Great Mortuary. This was a hollow chamber within one of the mounds, known as the Craig Mound. It served as a tomb for the society's most revered ancestors. Over generations, the people of Spiro placed an astonishing collection of sacred objects inside this chamber piles, of engraved conch shells from Florida, thousands of pearls, intricate woven textiles, and stunning copper work. It was a literal treasure trove, an archive of their most sacred beliefs and heirlooms. Tragically, in the 1930s, this sacred chamber was looted by commercial treasure hunters who used dynamite to blast their way in, destroying much of the context and selling off these priceless artifacts. Despite this devastation, what was salvaged and later professionally excavated has been called an American King Tut's tomb. The sheer quantity and quality of the materials from Spiro have provided unparalleled insight into the richness and complexity of the southeastern ceremonial complex, even if we are left to mourn what was lost forever. So we have Cahokia, Moundville, Etowah, and Spiro. 4 major centers, each with its own unique character, yet all woven into the same cultural tapestry. How was this vast world connected? It was a combination of trade, politics, and shared religion. Rivers were the highways of the Mississippian world. Dugout canoes, some capable of carrying several tons of cargo, plied the Mississippi, the Ohio, the Tennessee, and the Arkansas rivers, creating a network that linked the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico. They traded practical goods like salt, stone for tools, and copper, but they also traded luxury items and, most importantly, ideas. The spread of the southeastern ceremonial complex is the clearest evidence of this. A chief in Georgia, a priest in Alabama, and an artisan in Oklahoma could all understand and use the same symbolic language. This shared belief system provided a common cultural ground, a sense of belonging to a larger Mississippian identity, even if their local politics were sometimes competitive or hostile. What happened to this sprawling world? Like Cahokia, the other great centers also experienced decline. By around 1350, Moundville began to transform from a bustling city into a more exclusive necropolis city of the dead, where people came to bury their leaders but no longer lived in large numbers. Etowah saw several cycles of abandonment and reoccupation, finally falling silent around the same time. The reasons are complex and debated: climate change, resource depletion, political instability, and warfare all likely played a part. The Mississippian world didn't vanish overnight. Instead, it decentralized. The power once held by these massive centers dispersed into smaller, local chiefs, but the legacy endured. The mound-building tradition itself continued in some areas right up until European contact. More importantly, the descendants of the Mississippians, the Chickasaw, Creek, Cherokee, and many other nations of the Southeast, carried the cultural DNA of their ancestors forward. Their social structures, their clan systems, their agricultural practices, and their spiritual beliefs were all shaped by this powerful Mississippian heritage. When the first European explorers arrived, they didn't find an empty wilderness. They found a land populated by sophisticated societies whose roots ran deep into the soil of the Mississippian past. The great mounds they encountered were not mysteries built by a lost race. They were the monuments of the ancestors of the very people they were meeting. The legacy of the Mississippian world wasn't just in the earth they shaped, but in the enduring cultures of their descendants. It's a story of resilience, adaptation, and cultural continuity that stretches across thousands of years and thousands of miles. The legacy is still there, across the land, if you know where to look. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey across the Mississippian landscape. It's a testament to the incredible achievements of North America's indigenous peoples. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please give this video a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter. We have so much more history to uncover together. See you next time. Imagine you're an early European settler, pushing through the dense forests of North America. You're looking for farmland, a place to build a new life. Suddenly, the trees part, and you're faced with something impossible. The land rises up in enormous, geometric shapes, massive earthen pyramids stretching towards the sky. You've stumbled upon the ruins of Cahokia. What you think? Who could have built such a monumental city in the middle of what you thought was untouched wilderness? This was the exact mystery that confronted the first European and American explorers in the Mississippi Valley. They saw these incredible mounds, some small and round, others towering like Monks Mound, a structure larger at its base than the Great Pyramid of Giza. They knew they were looking at the remains of a great civilization, but their own biases and limited understanding of the continent's history led them down some very strange paths. The 19th century became a hotbed of wild speculation about the mound builders. The prevailing view was that Native Americans, as they were perceived at the time, were simply incapable of such sophisticated engineering and social organization. So, if they didn't build it, who did? The theories were as imaginative as they were wrong. Some claimed it was a lost tribe of Israel, wandering the continent after being exiled. Others pointed to Vikings, ancient Egyptians, or even people from the mythical lost city of Atlantis. Scholars and amateur archaeologists wrote countless books and articles, each proposing a different exotic origin story. They imagined a vanished white race, a highly advanced civilization that was later wiped out by the ancestors of the Native Americans they encountered. This mound builder myth was incredibly popular and served a convenient, if ugly, purpose. It helped justify the policy of manifest destiny and the removal of native peoples from their ancestral lands. If the mounds were built by a different, superior race, then contemporary Native Americans had no real claim to the land. Also, the twisted logic went. These theories, which we now know are completely false, dominated the conversation for decades. People would dig into the mounds, not with the careful precision of modern archaeology, but with the reckless abandon of treasure hunters. They were searching for proof of their far-fetched ideas. Hebrew tablets, European-style armor, or anything that would disconnect these magnificent structures from the indigenous people living right there. They found stunning artifacts. Of course, intricate pottery, finely crafted tools, and beautiful ornaments. But they interpreted everything through the lens of their preconceived notions. The sheer scale of Cahokia was baffling. How could a primitive people organize the labor to move an estimated 55 million cubic feet of earth? basketful. How could they align their city with celestial events with such precision? To the 19th century mind, it was easier to invent a lost civilization of giants or Atlanteans than to accept the truth that was right in front of them. It was a failure of imagination and a deep-seated prejudice that blinded them to the incredible achievements of the Mississippian culture. It wasn't until the late 19th and early 20th centuries that the tide began to turn. A new generation of more systematic and scientific archaeologists started to challenge the old myths. People like Cyrus Thomas, working for the Bureau of American Ethnology, were tasked with settling the question once and for all. Thomas and his teams conducted extensive excavations across the country, including at mound sites in the Cahokia region. They didn't just dig for treasure. They meticulously documented layers of soil, the placement of artifacts, and, crucially, the skeletal remains found within the mounds. What they discovered was undeniable. The physical characteristics of the skeletons were identical to those of modern Native Americans. The artifacts, from pottery styles to tool-making techniques, showed a clear, continuous line of development from earlier indigenous cultures in the region. There was no break, no sign of a mysterious foreign invasion or a vanished race. The evidence was overwhelming. The mound builders were, and always had been, the ancestors of the Native American people. This revelation was a monumental shift in American archaeology. It was the beginning of the end for the racist and fanciful mound builder myth. However, the official recognition of Cahokia as a purely indigenous creation didn't happen overnight. The old romantic ideas were slow to die and persisted in popular culture for a long time. But within the scientific community, the case was closed. The focus shifted from who built the mounds to how and why. Archaeologists could now begin the real work of understanding Mississippian society on its own terms. They could study its agriculture, its social structure, its religion, and its eventual decline without the distraction of searching for Vikings or Atlanteans. Recognizing the true builders of Cahokia was a critical step, not just for scientific accuracy, but for restoring a vital piece of history to its rightful inheritors. It was an admission that the story of America didn't begin in 1492, but thousands of years earlier, with complex and powerful civilizations rising and falling right here in the heartland of the continent. Today, thanks to a century of dedicated research, we see Cahokia clearly for what it was. The largest and most influential city of the Mississippian culture, a masterpiece of Native American ingenuity. We can now appreciate the sophisticated urban planning, the vast trade networks, and the deep spiritual worldview that animated this place. The rediscovery of Cahokia is a story in two parts. First, the physical discovery of the mounds themselves, but the second, and perhaps more important, discovery was the recognition of its true creators. It's a powerful reminder of how isolated prejudice can blind us to the truth, and how crucial it is to listen to the evidence, even when it challenges our deepest assumptions. The mounds are no longer mysterious symbols of a lost race. They are a proud testament to the enduring legacy of Native American civilization. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey back in time to explore the rediscovery of Cahokia. It's a fascinating chapter in our continent's history. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the past. We'll see you in the next one. Welcome back to our journey through time. In this final chapter, we're delving into how modern science deciphers the secrets of the past. It's one thing to stand in awe of ancient ruins, but how do we truly know their story? This is where archaeology steps in, acting as a detective for history. Imagine a vast, silent city, its stories buried under layers of earth and time. For centuries, its history was a mystery, a collection of legends and guesses. But then came the tools of modern archaeology. Excavation is no longer just about digging, it's a painstaking process. Archaeologists meticulously remove soil, layer by layer, almost like peeling back the pages of a book. Every shard of pottery, every fragment of a tool, every foundation stone is a word in a long-forgotten language. One of the most groundbreaking techniques we use is radiocarbon dating. You've probably heard of it, but how does it work? Simply put, all living things, from the mightiest tree to the tiniest seed, absorb carbon from the atmosphere, including a radioactive isotope called carbon-14. When an organism dies, it stops absorbing carbon, and the carbon-14 begins to decay at a predictable rate. by measuring the remaining carbon-14 in organic materials found at a site like a wooden beam from a house, a piece of charcoal from a hearth, or even ancient seed scientists can calculate how long ago it died. It's like a cosmic clock that tells us when a piece of history was made. Thanks to radiocarbon dating, we've been able to construct a remarkably detailed timeline for our ancient city. We can now say with confidence that this section was built around 2500 BC. While this marketplace flourished a few centuries later, it's this scientific precision that transforms speculation into a verifiable historical narrative. We've pinpointed periods of growth, moments of crisis, and the final era of decline. This data allows us to map the city's life story, revealing its pulse and rhythm across millennia. It's not just about dates. It's about understanding the ebb and flow of human life. But uncovering this history is only half the battle. Once these fragile remnants are exposed to the elements, the wind, the rain, and the sun, they begin to degrade. This is where the crucial work of preservation and conservation comes in. Preserving an archaeological site is an immense challenge. It requires a dedicated team of experts, from chemists who stabilize crumbling frescoes to engineers who reinforce ancient walls. Think of it as a hospital for history. Specialists use a variety of techniques, some ancient and some cutting-edge. They might use traditional lime mortars to repair stonework, just as the original builders did, ensuring the repairs are compatible with the original structure. In other cases, they might employ advanced polymers to consolidate fragile materials, or use ground radar to map what lies beneath the surface without even digging, minimizing disturbance. Every decision is made with the utmost care, with the goal of preserving the site's authenticity for future generations. This city's global significance was officially recognized when it was inscribed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This isn't just a fancy title. It's a profound commitment. Being a World Heritage Site means the international community acknowledges its outstanding universal value and pledges to help protect it. This status brings global attention, funding for conservation projects, and a shared responsibility to safeguard this treasure of human history. It elevates the site from a national monument to a legacy for all of humanity, a place that tells a story relevant to everyone, no matter where they come from. It is a reminder that our shared history is precious, and that we all have a role to play in protecting it. So, why does all this matter? Why do we pour so much effort into sifting through dust and stone? Because archaeology gives a voice to the silent past. History is often written by the victors, by the powerful, by the literate. Their monuments, their texts, their stories survive. But what about the ordinary people, the farmers, the artisans, the children, the families who lived and loved and worked within these city walls? Their stories weren't carved into grand monuments. Their lives are written in the objects they left behind. The worn-out tools, the simple cooking pots, the children's toys, the ashes in their fireplaces. Archaeology is the discipline that listens to these silent voices. It tells the story of the 99%. By studying the layout of homes, we can understand family structures and social dynamics. By analyzing animal bones and plant remains, we can reconstruct their diets and understand their relationship with the environment. By examining the pottery, we can trace trade routes and cultural connections that span hundreds of miles. Each artifact is a connection to a real person. This broken pot might have been used to cook a family's meal. This small, carved figurine might have been a child's most cherished possession. Through archaeology, we don't just learn about historical events. We connect with the shared human experience. We learn that, despite the vast gulf of time, people in the past were not so different from us. They had hopes, fears, and dreams. They built communities, raised families, and sought to make sense of the world around them. In the end, archaeology is more than just a science. It's an act of remembrance. It is a bridge across time that connects us to our ancestors and reminds us that our own lives are part of a much larger, ongoing story. The story of this ancient city is a testament to human ingenuity, resilience, and our enduring quest for meaning. By understanding our past, we gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and our place in the grand, unfolding narrative of humanity. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey through history. I hope it has been as enlightening for you as it has been for me. If you enjoyed this series, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more explorations into our amazing past. We have so many more stories to uncover together. Until next time, Stay curious. Have you ever stood in a place so ancient, so steeped in history, that you could almost hear the whispers of the past on the wind? That's the feeling you get at Cahokia. As the sun rises over Monks Mound, casting long shadows across the grand plaza, you're not just looking at an archaeological site. You're standing on sacred ground, a place where the echoes of a vibrant civilization still resonate. For centuries, this was the largest city north of Mexico, a bustling metropolis of tens of thousands of people. They built these incredible mounds with their bare hands, aligned them with the cosmos, and created a culture that would influence the entire continent. But then, as mysteriously as they rose, they vanished, leaving behind these silent earthen monuments as their only testament. But did they truly vanish? The story of the Mississippians doesn't end with the abandonment of their great city. It transforms. It flows like the great river that gave them their name, into the lives, traditions, and spirits of their descendants, the native nations of today. This isn't just a story about the past. It's a living history, a continuous thread connecting the ancient builders of Cahokia to the vibrant Native American communities that carry their legacy forward. Today, we're exploring those echoes of the ancestors, tracing the profound cultural and spiritual connections that time cannot erase. We'll journey from the silent mounds to the heart of contemporary native cultures to understand how the spirit of the Mississippians endures. To understand this connection, we first need to appreciate what the Mississippians left behind. It wasn't just pottery shards and arrowheads. They left a worldview, a way of understanding the cosmos and our place within it. Look at the layout of Cahokia itself. The precise alignment of the mounds and plazas with the sun, moon, and stars tells us they were brilliant astronomers and engineers. But more than that, it reveals a deep spiritual belief system where the celestial and the earthly were intertwined. The sun was a powerful deity, a source of life and order. This reverence for the sun is a key thread that connects them to their descendants. Many present-day native nations in the southeast, like the Muskogee Creek, the Shakto, the Chickasaw, and many others, carry on traditions that echo this solar reverence. Their green corn ceremony, for example, is one of the most important spiritual events of the year. It's a time of renewal, forgiveness, and thanksgiving, traditionally timed with the ripening of the new corn crop. It involves dances, purification rituals, and the lighting of a sacred fire, symbolizing the sun's life-giving power and the renewal of the community. The structure and symbolism of these ceremonies have deep roots that many scholars and tribal elders trace back to the Mississippian world. The sacred fire at the heart of the ceremony is a direct link to the central hearths that once burned in the temples atop mounds like Cahokia. Another powerful echo is the mound itself. For the Mississippians, these weren't just platforms for buildings. They were sacred landscapes. They were connections to the sky world and the underworld, places where spiritual leaders could communicate with the divine. They were also burial places for revered ancestors, making them intensely sacred ground. This profound respect for ancestral landscapes is a cornerstone of many Native American beliefs today. When members of nations like the Osage or the Quapo visit Cahokia, they are not tourists. They are pilgrims returning to a place of origin, a place where their ancestors lived, worshipped, and were laid to rest. This enduring connection is a sacred trust. For these nations, the mounds are not relics of a dead past. They are living, breathing entities that hold the spirits of their ancestors. They are family. This is why the protection and preservation of these sites are so critically important. When a mound is threatened by development or neglect, it's not just an archaeological loss. It's a spiritual desecration. It's like threatening a family cemetery. This fight for preservation is a modern expression of that ancient, enduring respect for the ancestors and the sacred landscapes they shaped. The voices of contemporary Native leaders advocating for these sites are the clearest echoes of the ancestors we can hear today. Let's think about the art and symbolism. The motifs found on Mississippian pottery, shell gorgets, and copper plates are not just decorative. They are a complex symbolic language. We see images of the falcon, a powerful celestial symbol representing warriors and messengers. We see the serpent, a creature of the underworld, representing the forces of chaos and creation. We see the circle and cross, a symbol of the sun and the four cardinal directions, representing the order of the cosmos. These very same symbols reappear in the traditional art, stories, and ceremonial regalia of their descendants. The falcon dances of the Muskogee Nation, for instance, evoke the same powerful imagery of the ancient birdman figures found at Cahokia. This is not a coincidence. It's a conscious and continuous cultural inheritance, a visual language passed down through countless generations. Even the games they played have survived. The game of chunky, played with a stone disc and spears, was immensely popular in Mississippian times. It was more than just a sport. It was a ceremonial event, sometimes used to settle disputes or as part of major festivals. Astonishingly, variations of chunky were played by tribes like the Choctaw and Chickasaw well into the historic period and are being revived today as a way to connect with their heritage. Imagine a game played in the Grand Plaza of Cahokia 1,000 years ago is now being played by the descendants of its people. It's a tangible, physical link to the past, an action that collapses time and brings the world of the ancestors into the present moment. So, what does this all mean when you stand at Cahokia today? It means the stillness you feel is not one of emptiness, but of presence. The wind rustling through the prairie grasses carries more than just dust. It carries stories. The silence is not an absence of sound, but a space filled with the spiritual energy of generations. The Mississippian people didn't just disappear. Their political structures collapsed, and their great city was abandoned. But the people themselves, their culture, and their spirit did not vanish. They adapted, migrated, and transformed, carrying the core of their beliefs with them. They became the nations that would later encounter Europeans, the nations that would endure forced removal on the Trail of Tears, and the nations that are thriving and reclaiming their heritage today. The spirit of the Mississippians is not confined to archaeological sites. It lives in the language of a Choctaw elder, in the rhythm of a Muskogee stomp dance, in the determination of a Quapaw activist protecting a sacred mound, and in the heart of every native person who claims this incredible heritage. The story of Cahokia and its descendants is a powerful reminder that cultures are not static objects to be placed in a museum. They are living, flowing rivers. They change course, they face droughts, but they endure. The echoes of the ancestors are not faint whispers from a distant past. They are a resonant chorus, singing in the voices of their descendants, reminding us of the enduring power of community, the sacredness of the land, and the unbreakable bond of kinship that stretches across the centuries. When we listen closely, we can hear them, not just at Cahokia, but in the heart of Native America today. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through time. It's a story that deserves to be told and understood with the deepest respect. If you found this exploration meaningful, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more stories that connect our past to our present. Your support helps us continue to share these vital histories. See you next time. As our journey through the echoes of the past draws to a close, let's take a moment, right here, to just breathe. Inhale the cool night air and exhale the day's hustle. We've walked the spectral streets of a city that time forgot, but the earth remembers. We've stood in the shadow of great mounds, monuments not of stone, but of soil and soul, shaped by hands that have long since returned to the dust they once commanded. These are not just hills. They are chapters in a story written on the landscape, a story of a civilization that pulsed with life, with ceremony, with ambition, and with art. Imagine, for a moment, the sheer will it took to build this place. Tens of thousands of people, united by a shared vision, moving basketful after basketful of earth, each grain of soil a word, each layer a sentence, each mound a saga of their world. They built their cosmos here, aligning their sacred spaces with the sun and the moon, charting the heavens in the very ground beneath their feet. What we see today are the quiet remnants, the green, sleeping forms that have weathered centuries of sun, wind, and rain. But they are not silent. If you listen closely, not with your ears, but with your heart, you can almost hear the whispers, the murmur of 1,000 voices in a bustling plaza, the rhythmic chant of a ceremony at a temple's peak, the laughter of children playing along the riverbanks. This city, this great civilization, didn't just vanish. It transformed. Its people moved on, their descendants carrying the stories, the traditions, the spirit of this place in their bloodlines, scattering like seeds across the continent. The mounds remain as living memories. They are the Earth's own archive, holding the energy, the prayers, and the dreams of those who came before. They have witnessed the rise and fall of empires that came after, the changing of forests, the shifting of rivers. They are stoic guardians of a profound human truth, that we are all temporary. But what we build with purpose and passion can endure. It can become part of the land itself, a permanent feature of its soul. Think about the cycles of this place. The sun rises, casting long shadows from the mounds, just as it did 1,000 years ago. The stars wheel overhead, the same constellations that guided their priests and astronomers. The seasons turn, painting the landscape in different hues, a rhythm they knew intimately. In this continuity, we find a powerful connection. We are standing on hallowed ground, not just because of what happened here, but because it is still happening. The earth remembers. It holds the imprint of every footstep, every ceremony, every life lived and lost. This civilization didn't have a written language as we know it, with books and scrolls. Their library was the earth itself. The mounds were their encyclopedias, their sacred texts, their history books. Each one tells a different part of the story, from the platforms that held the homes of chiefs and priests to the conical mounds that cradled their honored dead, marking their journey into the next world. They spoke in a language of form, of placement, of sacred geometry. To understand them is to learn to read the landscape, to see the world through their eyes. And as we stand here, under the vast, star-dusted canopy of the night sky, we are part of that continuum. The same moon that illuminates our faces now once shone down on their grand city, its silver light tracing the outlines of these very same structures. They looked up at this same moon and saw a deity, a guide, a keeper of time. We look up and see a celestial body, a scientific wonder. But the AOD, the sense of smallness in the face of cosmic grandeur, that feeling is timeless. It connects us directly to them, a shared human experience across a chasm of 1,000 years. The legacy of this place isn't just in the artifacts dug from the soil. Intricate pottery, the sharp arrowheads, the symbolic ornaments. The true legacy is in the mounds themselves. They teach us about community, about dedication to a shared goal that transcends a single lifetime. They teach us about our relationship with the natural world, a relationship of respect and reciprocity, not just extraction. They remind us that our own bustling cities, our towering skyscrapers of steel and glass, are just the latest chapter in this long, long story of human settlement. What will we leave behind? What will the earth remember of us? Will it be scars on the landscape? Or will it be something that speaks of our own connection to the world and to each other? These are the questions that rise from the sleeping earthworks. They challenge us to think beyond our own lives, to consider the story we are writing for the future. This ancient city never truly disappeared from history's soul. It has been waiting patiently for us to come and listen. It has been preserved not in a museum behind glass, but out here in the open, breathing with the world. Its spirit infuses the trees that grow on its slopes, the grasses that wave in the wind, the very air we are breathing tonight. It's a testament to the resilience of culture and the enduring power of place. So, as our exploration concludes, I invite you to find a comfortable spot, perhaps in your mind's eye, and simply rest. Let the day's thoughts drift away like clouds across the moon. Picture this ancient city settling into its nightly slumber. The fires in the hearths have been banked, the voices have faded, and a profound quiet has descended, broken only by the chirping of crickets and the rustle of leaves. The great mounds stand as dark, silent silhouettes against a tapestry of infinite stars. The earth is breathing slowly, deeply. The city is dreaming. It dreams of its past, glories, and it waits for the dawn. Allow yourself to join in that rest. Let the deep peace of this ancient, sleeping place seep into your own being. Let the earth remember for you, holding your worries and your weariness, just as it holds the memory of this incredible civilization. Sleep now, as the ancient city sleeps once more, safe beneath the watchful eyes of the stars. The earth remembers, and in its memory, we find our own peace. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey. If these stories of the past resonate with you, Please consider following our channel for more explorations into the world. Your support allows us to continue bringing these lost histories to light. Until next time, rest well.